Today's talk is on possibility. And I like this idea because possibility is pretty infinite, isn't it? And by the way, as we go, I'm really just going to see what comes through me. If at any time you do have a question or a comment, just raise your hand and we can bring it into the conversation. Cool? Awesome. So we're talking today about possibility. And when I think of possibility, I actually come back to that word of permission. Because a lot of times we're going through life seeing things that we want, seeing other people with the things that we want, seeing experiences and feelings and possessions and objects and whatever it is that you might desire. And the possibility of having it, experiencing it, feeling it, there's only one barrier, and that's, are you giving yourself permission or not? Are you allowing it? It's really interesting. Whenever I work one-on-one with clients, the first thing I ask them is, what do you want? Simple question. What do you want? And most people, they'll respond, they'll be like, oh, I don't want to suffer anymore. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I don't want heartbreak, oh, that last relationship. And I don't want to be sick, or I don't want to be poor, or I don't want this, I don't want that. I'm like, whoa. That's everything that you don't want. That's what you're avoiding in life. What do you want? There's a difference. And it's almost like people think that it's a trick question, because they're like, what do you mean, what do I want? And they sit with it for a moment. Maybe you guys are right now in your own minds when I ask, what do you want? Normally the second response I get after that question is, I don't know. I don't know what I want. And I tend to think that's not true. I think we all know what we want. I think we're very clear as to what we want. Otherwise, why do we get disappointed when we don't get it? If a chocolate cake walked in here right now, you'd be like, I know what I want. And so I don't think the problem is knowing what you want. I think the problem is permission. Recognizing that you have permission to have it. And that permission is going to come from within you, not from outside of you. Somewhere along the way in our journeys of life, we've got stuck in the idea that some external authority was going to approve us. Say, okay, now you've done enough, you've struggled enough, you worked enough, you made enough, now you can have the things that you want. And for many people, they don't even start on the path towards what they want until they've gotten that approval, or until they think they've done enough to get that approval. Which means that when you finally start, you have a long road before you get there. So what if we all just start giving ourselves permission? And I define permission as allowing for possibility. Allowing for possibility. Notice the word is allowing, it's a permission. It's not forcing, manipulating, trying to make sure it happens, controlling. It's allowing possibility. So often the statement I hear from people is like, yeah, but how do I make that happen? You can't. But what you can do is open yourself up for the possibility. You guys hear the difference in that? We're always trying to force or control the environment around us and sometimes the people around us, and it doesn't work that way. But what you can do is start to open yourself to the possibilities, the infinite possibilities that are actually available, and then realize that you have the power to choose what it is that you want amongst all those possibilities. There's a real power in choosing. I'll share a little personal example from my relationship with Christina. When we first started to date, or really before we even started dating, when we started getting to know each other and we were thinking about dating, I think the first feeling that was there, at least on my side, I can only speak for myself, on my side was, oh, I need that woman. I need to get to know her, I need to talk to her, I need to find out who that person is. I saw her across the room one day and I was like, oh. And then I didn't get to talk to her that day or the next day or probably a couple of days later, and I was still alive. Which meant it wasn't a need. Needs are about survival, right? You need things that are life and death. And so there was a part of my nervous system was like, okay, good. I don't need her, but I want. I have a desire. I want to get to know this person. I want to know who she is, and I want to know what's possible. But then I also saw chocolate cake, and I was like, I want the chocolate cake. And I also want to work on my business, and I also want to get to know that person, and that person, and that person. And then what was the power was I said, amongst all the wants, amongst all the desires, I choose. And she said the same back. We actually have it on the inside of our wedding bands. It says, I choose you. Because this idea of choosing from the infinite possibilities, one, can only happen when you give permission for those possibilities. When you allow yourself to see that there are so many things. Now I'm going to drive this home as to why I'm talking about it as possibilities and this power of choosing, because when you choose something in your life, that's when it really starts to manifest for you. That's when you start to align everything, every resource, every step, every movement and action you take towards that. Here's a thought that I think, oh yeah, go ahead. Good question. She said, how do you choose? I think this question has a little bit deeper to it, right? It's this idea of how do you make the right choice, right? Anybody in here had trouble in the past or currently making the right choice? Yeah, some of us, right? And it's a very simple answer. The right choice is the one that you choose. The right choice is the one that you choose. It's not about whether you can weigh them, compare them, and decide, oh, okay, well, that could be better or that could be better. It's the one that you choose. That's going to be the right choice, because the moment you step onto that path, as opposed to the other, through that door instead of the other door, all of a sudden, that's the only one. So you better commit. And then once you've committed, you start taking a few more steps, get some clarity. As you get that clarity, things start to come into view. And all of a sudden, as you do, either one of two things is going to happen. You're going to get really clear as to, yes, I made the right choice. Or, I made the right choice. Or, you're going to think, you know what, this gave me some lessons, this showed me some things, but I think I want to explore other possibilities now. And then at that point, there's a new fork in the road, and you can make a new choice. See, we think we have to make the right choice because it's the last time we're ever going to have the chance. But in every single moment, in every single second, because there are infinite possibilities, you can make a new choice. Now, I want to go back a moment here because especially in relationships, and Christina and I do a lot of relationship coaching for couples and things, and so we get similar things coming to us all the time, and one of the biggest ones, especially in communities like this in Ubud, you get a lot of people who are into polyamory and open relationships and things like that, and they're like, I want to have choices, I want to have possibilities. This is a different kind of possibility than I'm talking about. The scary thing about allowing for possibilities is that you might not be the choice anymore. Did you guys hear that? The scary thing about allowing for possibilities, both for you in life and for others in life, is that you might not be the choice. You might ask for something and they might say no. Right? It's one of the scariest things. We think rejection is the scary thing. It's not that. It's getting the no when we wanted the yes. But what that is, it's the clarity. Because when they say yes, it's a real yes. When they were really given possibilities to choose from. But if you try to narrow down by manipulations and other things in your life or your communication with somebody to try to cause them or influence them to go in the way that you would like them to go, to choose you, then you're not getting a real yes. You're not getting a real choice. They don't realize there's other possibilities that they're choosing you as opposed to the rest. So, this is a really important aspect when we are choosing outward into the life, into the things that we want, is to realize it's not because we didn't have any other choice. It's because we claimed by our own volition, by our own desire, by our own clarity, and our own accountability, that's a really important one, we said, yes, this is the path I'm going to start walking today. It's not because somebody else suggested it. It's not because society said that's the right one. It's because you chose it. And when you do that, you have a far more likelihood of committing to your choice because it was yours. But to have any of that, you have to recognize possibility. You have to recognize that there is possibility of so many things in your life, and all you have to do is choose the one that you want to start to pursue in that moment. What I find for most people when they're having really challenging moments in life is that they forgot the possibilities that are there. They've gotten so zoned in and focused normally on their challenge, on the problem, on some struggle, or even sometimes an emotion that starts to really layer up and compound on them, that they forget that there's these other possibilities. one of the first things I get to do as a coach is show them that there's other possibilities. I love when I get people coming out of like a relationship breakup. Sometimes it's a heartbreak. And they come and they'll be like, that's it. I swear off anybody. I don't want to ever be in a relationship again. Love doesn't work. I've tried it in every possible way and it's just not working. I go, you tried it in every way? That's amazing. How much time do you have? And they're like, well, not every possible way. I'm like, oh, so then you're tossing out some stuff you haven't even tried? Because they've already decided that there's no other possibilities. The way that it's been happening is the only way it can happen. It's also a big thing that I hear from people all the time. It's like, well, that's how it's always happened. That's what's always happened to me. So I don't really see that it's going to change. Well, not with that attitude. Possibility is always going to be about the unknown. I'm going to say that again. Possibility is always going to be about the unknown. Familiar is about the known. Possibility, that which you haven't experienced yet, the things you haven't chosen and gone towards yet, it's often unknown, which means there's a little piece of us that gets real scared. Because our minds are built for the familiar. Our mind is there as a defense mechanism to help you survive. And so you change anything in your daily routine and your mind's like, what are you doing? We could die. Stop doing that. Right? Maybe it's the first time you go to a yoga class, and even just stepping in there, you're like, and your mind's like, we should just leave now. We could die in there. Don't do it. Don't do it. Look, people are sweating. Don't do it. We get into this survival mode, and you know what survival mode is? It's being in this little tiny piece of the brain called the amygdala, and the amygdala has only about 4 options, 4 possibilities. It's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fawn is people-pleasing. That's pretty limited. And if you think that's all you've got in life, and by the way, unfortunately, most people are living in that amygdala most of their lives. Most of us are living in avoidance of some threat, some perceived danger most of our lives. We're looking at the things we're trying to avoid. And when you get stuck there, then all of a sudden it seems like there's no other possibilities because you're like, no, I have to do this, otherwise I'll die. People will come to Bali because they're burnt out from some job, and they're like, yeah, but I don't have a choice. I need to pay my bills. You can't do anything else? Well, I never thought about that. Because they get so stuck in that survival mentality and they lose perspective of the possibilities. I think that's also why Bali is such a healing place. You come here, you spend a few days, a couple of weeks. If you're like me, you come for 2 weeks, you stay for 14 years. And all of a sudden your eyes get open because you start to see other people doing different things. You see other people living in a different way. You see people working remotely, or they have a job just sitting on the beach, or coming and talking to people about the heart. And you're like, wait a second, I don't have to sit in a cubicle 9 to 5, wasting my life away. I have options, possibilities. Yes. But sometimes you have to get out of that space, that environment, which is causing you to feel like you're in danger. Because if you're not feeling safe, you're going to stay in that amygdala. So the very first step is find safety. Even if it's for that moment so that you can get some clarity, you can come to this frontal cortex, which is creative, problem solving, and does all sorts of beautiful, imaginative things. How are you guys doing, by the way? Cool. So we're talking about possibility today. And so far I've been keeping it pretty grounded. I like to make this a practical wisdom kind of journey and talk where we have stuff we can actually apply, or frameworks and things that we can work with in life. But with possibility, because everything's possible, I kind of want to dive a little bit into the esoteric, into the metaphysical. Right? How many of you, especially that you've come here to Bali and you're probably into conscious work and things like that, have played around with energy or, sacred geometry and these ideas of that we're all connected? But there's a really interesting possibility when you think about that. That when there's something that you want in life, and maybe you see somebody else that has it, and the first thought, because if you're in that survival mechanism, you're thinking, that person has it, I don't, I'm going to die, they're going to live. And you separate the possibility. But when you start to realize that we're actually all connected, not just in how we interact, but actually at an atomic level, at a metaphysical quantum level, we're entangled in some way, that what that person has, They're showing you the example of what's possible for you. Another way to put it, there's this term called sympathetic resonance. If you take two violins, for instance, like one violin here, and I was to start to play on one of the violins, automatically the strings on the other violin, without touching it, would start to vibrate at the same tone and tune. It's beautiful. And I think we do the same thing with each other. That's why when somebody walks into the room, and if they're really vibrant and really vital, and they've got this big smile on their face, you can't help but get joyful. But the same also, if somebody walks in, they're like, "I'm having a terrible day, oh, I hate life, and there's no possibilities, I'm in my amygdala." Right? You also get a little bit heavier because we're entangled. They're showing you examples of possibility. Now, sometimes possibility is not always just the positive possibilities. Infinite, meaning there's going to be the good stuff and the bad stuff, the heavy stuff, the light stuff. There's not really a real comparative judgment here, but it's more about what lines up best for what you want. Are you choosing the things that you want, or are you choosing the things that you think you have to do? And again, have to is going to come back to a sense of need, is a sense of survival. You're limiting your whole life. You're taking away possibility. So we come back to this question of how do you make that choice? And not only is it that you realize that whatever choice you make is going to be the right choice, but how do you actually take a step? How do you move yourself? Because sometimes we'll sit in that limbo state at the fork in the road, looking and being like, ugh. And I think the problem is that we try to take these great leaps instead of a small step, a little baby step. Baby steps you can do. But we're yogis, right? So we're like, I'm at the bottom of the mountain, I can get to the top. Just one good stretch. Right? And sometimes we make that leap, and because it's such a long leap, we're like halfway there, we're like, yes! Like Hanuman, you're like, yeah, well, I'm not going to fall short, shoot! And then you don't make it. Maybe that one moment, that one time that you tried, you put your whole heart into it, and then it didn't work out. And what did that do? It put a little seed of thought and doubt and insecurity in your mind, and you're like, I'm never going to try again, that doesn't work. But maybe it was just that you tried to take too big of a leap. And my belief is that we take big leaps out of urgency. And if we have urgency, we're acting out of avoidance, not out of desire. Because when you're trying to avoid something, you think something's chasing you, something that you don't want to lose, something that you don't want to experience, some judgment, whatever it is, and you're trying to run away from it, you've got an urgency, a desperation. You're like, I gotta get that thing that's going to solve this problem. I need it now. With that kind of energy, you're planting the seeds of more desperation, more avoidance, more fear. You have to turn towards what you want instead of that which you have been avoiding. And I'm going to give you guys a ninja strategy. Whatcha? By the way, if you've come to my classes before, you know that if I ever say ninja strategy, you can join me in a whatcha. We're going to try it right now. Ninja strategy. Whatcha? Yes. What you have to do is you have to choose towards what you want, not what you're avoiding. And here's the strategy. It's very simple. Here's the thing that you have been avoiding. Often it's your history. It's from your past. It's something that's familiar to you. And it's either something that you didn't like or that you like and you don't want to lose. So you're avoiding losing it. But there's an avoidance in there. It gets subtle. And you're here, and this is the future possibilities and the things that you can have. And you have to do this. It's like a Michael Jackson move. You go, hee hee. You just turn around. It's a change in focus, a change in perspective. Because sometimes from wherever we're standing or facing, we're not seeing all the possibilities. To give you guys an example, years ago I used to teach classes in San Diego, California at one of the colleges there. And it was really beautiful. There were like little spiritual, I don't even know what I called them, spiritual growth classes or personal development classes. And one day I had this little old lady. She was so cute. And she was sitting in the front row, and I was talking about possibilities, and I was talking about all these things that we have in life and what we can experience. And she raises her hand. I'm like, yeah. And she goes, oh, look here, Sonny. I've lived a very long life. I think she was 81. I'm 81. And what you're talking about, it sounds nice. It's great for you. But that's not possible for everyone. I was like, well, really? She's like, no. I've lived a long life, and that kind of thing, that wasn't possible in my day. It's not possible today. Sorry. So, okay. So I asked her if she would humor me for a moment, And I said, can we try something? She's like, sure. I said, come on up here. And there was this table, and it was kind of like this one table, and there was a box on the table. And she was on the other side, I was on this side, and I said, look, I believe it's possible for you to put your hand in this box without touching the box. And the box was, closed up. And she's looking at it, and she's like, no, that's not possible. It's just like that jibber-jabber you were talking about earlier. That's not going to happen. I said, no, it's possible. I swear to you, it's possible. So she keeps looking at the box, and she's looking at the table a little bit, and no, she's like, it's not possible. I said, why don't you come around to my side? See, on my side of the table, the box was wide open. On her side, it was closed. Perspective. We have to change our perspective. But here's the thing. Like I said, the thing that we were looking at before, it's familiar. We've known it. We're comfortable with it, even if we don't like it. A lot of times we're in situations that aren't ideal, but we're like, yeah, but at least I know what it is. I know what to expect, so I'd rather that than what I don't know. As I said before, possibility is always going to be of the unknown. So there's this thing that you have to embrace in your life. It's 3 words. I think there are 3 words that are almost as powerful as I love you. Every chance I get, I throw a little comment towards her. Those 3 words are, I don't know. I don't know. Most people are so afraid of those words. They want to know. They're like, but if I don't know, then I will die. No, you won't. You know what happens when you embrace I don't know? You give yourself the opportunity, the possibility to find out. When you embrace I don't know, you give yourself the possibility to find out. When you are avoiding that, dismissing it, refusing it, trying to act like you do know, making up a story as if you do, then you never get to find out reality. You live in fantasy. And eventually fantasy has conflict with reality. Now I want to make a little discernment here. Fantasy is different than imagination. Imagination's amazing. It's the seeds with which you plant to create possibility in reality. But fantasy is normally our distraction from reality. It's us going off into worlds that feel better than the one that we're in. But then we're not doing something in the world that we're in to help us shift into the possibilities that we want. To me, that's another form of avoidance. Fantasy is like imagination without a plan. Give it a plan. Start taking steps, even if they're baby steps of possibility. And the beauty is what happens when you take a smaller step, not these grand leaps. You take a little step, and your mind, because at first it was like, don't change anything, don't change anything, don't change anything. And you take a little step, and it's like, you change something, you do. Oh, okay. And we're still alive. Whew. But don't do that again, though. And then you do it again, and you do it again. This is a thing called consistency. When you are consistent in your actions and in your direction, your mind starts to build confidence. And in that confidence, it's like, wait a second, we're changing things, we're building things, we're cultivating things. Oh my God, my life is amazing! Because you start moving in a direction with intention. And I think one of the greatest, I'll say, activations of possibility is to move with intention. And intention is another word for choose. Choose the direction and steps that you take. Be intentional. Sometimes I get the question from people, how do I find my purpose? Any of you in here have been looking for your purpose, or maybe found your purpose, or feel like you're on the brink of finding your purpose? It's really interesting to me because I always hear people say the same story. They're like, yes, no, I know I have a great purpose. It's going to change the world. It's why I was born. I'm here for some grand action and impact and influence, and I'm going to change everything. That's amazing. What is it? I don't know. Oh, I forgot when I was incarnated. That sucks. I like to say that instead of having a purpose, be on purpose. And that's intentional. Be purposeful, intentional, choosing every single step and action and feeling and thought that you have. Don't be the victim of something happening to you. Be the creator of it occurring. Even the thoughts. People will say, but how do I stop that thought? It's always there. Think something else that you want. Yeah, but then that thought might catch up. Yeah, it'll be there still. It's like a shadow to the light, but you always have both. See, that's actually another big wisdom secret. you never get rid of the opposite. You never get rid of the dark stuff or the shadows or the negatives or the heaviness or the things that you've been judging. Those don't go away, but you balance them with the things that you desire, the things that you choose to say are positive and wanted and moving you in the direction that you want. And as you do that, your brain, so at the physiological level, starts to align with that, and instead of looking always for the dangers to avoid, it starts going, wait, that person kept looking at the thing that they wanted, that must be significant to their survival, I'll show them more of that. And your brain starts to filter your reality so that you start to notice the possibilities that you weren't seeing before, but they were right there. They were right there at your doorstep. How many of you have tried to manifest something and you were working super hard on it, and maybe you even made vision boards and all these different things, you were doing affirmations, and let's say it was to find a new job, and you were trying and trying and trying, and it wasn't working, and finally you're just like, I give up. I'm not even going to do this anymore, and the next day happens. Anybody had that situation? Where as soon as you surrender, as soon as you stop trying to force it, because when you're forcing it, urgency, you were trying to avoid something, you were uncomfortable with the situation as it was, and you were trying to change it out of control. When you surrender, there's a little part of you that goes, I trust, it's possible, it'll happen, if it happens. Oh, there it is. So we start to allow for possibility, permission. But sometimes before we even get to that, we have to have accepted first the reality, right? We need to know where we're starting from. A lot of times people don't know where they're starting from. And I call this acceptance. Most people, when you say acceptance, there's a slight misunderstanding, I believe, of the word. It's like you go to a friend, you've been having a hard day, and you're like, this happened, and then this happened, and I lost this client, and you know, so-and-so called and gave me bad news, and I ate my chocolate cake and it melted before I had it because it was raw, and whatever happened to you, and you're like, everything's bad, and your friend's like, yeah, you just have to accept it. Just accept it. There's probably a lesson in it, and you're like, shut up. Because it's great if you can really just do that and release it. But most of us, we're not releasing it. What we're doing in that form of acceptance, we're tolerating the circumstance with the hidden hope that it'll change. We're like, yeah, I accept it. And then you kind of take a double look, be like, did it change? Damn it. You're trying to manipulate life and reality. Life and reality and each other, I think you guys can probably agree with this, nobody likes to be manipulated, right? Anybody in here like to manipulate it? Probably not. But we're doing it all the time in life. We're trying to sneak our desires in. We're trying to, around the corner, say what we want, but we're not direct. We're not just saying it. Because often we're not really sure where we're starting from to even give that direction. I'll give you a little example. When Christina and I first started dating, there was a lot of stories about when we first started dating. Now we're perfect. No, nobody's really perfect. We always have our ups and downs, and it's beautiful. That's part of the growing process. But when we first started dating, and our communication, and to this day, we're always still working on this, wasn't always direct. And one day, we were eating a dessert, and we each had a cookie, and she had finished her cookie already. I was still eating mine. She looks over, and she gives me those puppy dog eyes. And she asks, are you going to finish that cookie? And I looked at her, and I gave her the same looking eye. Yes, I am. And then she got really upset, and I was like, what? You asked, am I going to finish it? I answered. Now, had she asked, can I have a little bit of your cookie? I might have had a different answer. Right? That's how subtle the manipulations are that we're doing in life all the time. And we do it even to the things that we want personally, that we're sending out some prayer into the universe, and we're like, oh, I would really like $1 million because I'm gonna share it with people, and I want it for good works. The truth is, you want the $1 million because you don't want to be poor. You're afraid of that, and you want more to feel safe. See, we start to come down to the real thing that you want. You want to feel safe and free and able. That's why we want the resources. When you get clear about that, and then you go, oh, okay, I want to feel safe. How can I feel safe? Just choose it. Make sure you're in the right environment. Actually, another ninja strategy. Whatcha? Yeah. Another strategy for safety, very simple. It's a question. Just ask yourself, am I safe right now? Notice the now piece. Because you don't actually know what the next moment's going to be like, or the next day, or next week. But right now, am I safe? And the beauty is that if you have the luxury to be asking that question, you're safe. Because if you're in the middle of a highway and a car's coming at you, you're not like, let me ask some questions here. Do I move or no? You get out of the way, right? When there is true necessity, need, survival, you respond. It's immediate. But when there isn't an absolute need, then it's a desire, it's a want, and we get into this place of our minds that thinks, oh, but maybe I can't have that because this or that, and that makes the lack of safety. Because our mind gets in the way thinking that we're not enough, that we're not worthy of, that we can't have that. And if we can't have that because we tied it to a need, we think we're going to die, and our physiology, our nervous system starts acting in that way, and we get very anxious and stressed. So, first step. Check in. Where are you really at, and are you feeling safe? And this is where the definition that I would like to use for acceptance comes in. Acceptance to me is recognizing the reality for what it is in this moment. It's just recognizing it for what it is. If you're out of money, sick, and you have no idea what is next, okay, accept by recognizing that's the reality. Because if you don't know where to step from. You don't know what you need to work with. If you're in fantasy, being like, no, everything's going to be okay. How many of you have done that? Oh, it's okay. Everything's fine. It'll work out. But you don't want to look at what's really happening. I see it here all the time, actually. People get very anxious about their budgets and their money, and they'll be like, I'm running out of money. I don't know what I'm going to do. I might have to go back and work again, and this and that. And I'll ask, like, well, how much do you have? Well, I don't know. I don't want to look. You have to accept the reality, because until you know the reality, you don't know what the possibilities are. Because from the reality, that's your home base. That's the starting point, right? From there, you can now look and choose and move. It allows you to create a point of reference. I'll give you another example of this. How many of you bought something online from Amazon or Tokopedia if you live here? Right? We're in a digital community, right? So people are buying stuff online all the time, and there's a process. We're all used to that process. You go online, let's say it's on Amazon, and you're looking, and you're like, okay, there's something I want, and you already have an idea of what you want. And let's say it's a self-help book called Who Are You? And it's on Kindle. And you go on there, and you're like, there it is, yes, that's what I want. And you hit purchase. But the first page after the purchase button, it's not straight to payment. It goes to a review page, right? There's always a review page when you're buying stuff online. It's a beautiful thing because it's actually the same in life. When you say yes to something, you're saying yes to the possibility. You're giving yourself permission that this is a possibility for me. You don't have to invest yet, but at least say yes to the possibility so you can find clarity. I see people have knee-jerk reactions all the time. Oh, hey, have you ever tried rock climbing? Well, no, I can't do that. I've never tried. If you've never tried, how do you know you can't? Say yes to the possibility. Get more information. So you do the review page, you check it out, and then you say yes, that's all correct. And now it goes to the billing page, and okay, you put in your investment. Everything in life requires some form of investment. Your time, your energy, your choice, a resource, whatever it is, you put the investment. Those aren't the hard pages. It's the last page, shipping address. If you have not recognized the reality of where you're starting from, where you're at, then all the resources, all the possibilities that you want in life don't know where to go. So, shipping address, home base, figure that out. Acceptance. Now, once you have acceptance, we move to permission. Permission is to get curious of all the possibilities. It's to start looking around, feeling into what you desire, what feels good, what feels aligned with you. What's a match? As you do that, there's a practice and a cultivation that happens, which is an internal one, where you start to feel the sensations of your actual body. Because the mind is normally looking at your history. It's reflective. And so it's going to be like, well, the last time we tried something like that, it didn't work out, so no, don't do it. But maybe this time, maybe it's just a food. Like, probably as a child, you had to eat some lima beans, and you're like, oh, I don't like them. But now, you eat it and you're like, oh, that's pretty good. Or maybe spirulina. Can you imagine? For those of you who love spirulina today, or even a durian, like, these are things that have intense taste. And today you're like, I love that stuff, it's so good, it makes me feel vital, yes. As a child, you gave it to yourself, and you're like, oh. We change. And so, give the new possibility. Don't follow the mind's history, but instead feel the presence of what your body tells you today. Explore it a moment. Take a step into that new possibility. Feel, oh, I still feel safe. That, by the way, is going to be the critical factor. If in every single step you still feel safe, then you're aligned. The moment you don't feel safe, it's because there's a piece of you in your body that's going, oh, this doesn't feel right. Okay, pause. Take a moment. Relax. Take a breath. See what other possibilities there are. Take another step. The point is not to ever get stuck. Not to stagnate. Because that's what we do. We get into our comfort zones and we sit down and we're like, it's too dangerous out there. I'm just not going to change anything. This is fine. This is enough. But then we get upset because we're looking around us and other people are doing other things. And then we compare. And then we feel bad about ourselves. When it was always your choice. The possibility is there. I like when I hear from people that are visiting here in Bali and they're posting all their beautiful pictures and they're sending it back home and their friends and family are looking at it and they're like, oh, I wish I could do that. You can! The possibility is there if you choose it. And that's really the point, that every single infinite possibility, anything that you could ever desire, anything that you've seen anybody else experience or do, you also can have. No matter what. Somebody might be like, well, you can't do the Olympics if you're quadriplegic. They have quadriplegic Olympics. Yes, you can. You find a way. But you can't find the way until you take that first step and start getting clarity and gaining confidence and creating the possibility for yourself. So the question is, one, how to embody our choices more, how to actually take action, right? It's one of the hardest things. We can get really clear in our mind. We're like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it. Tomorrow, I'm going to do it. Right? You got to get out of your routine. And that's the thing. Sometimes, again, the big leaps is what scares us. And maybe what is a big leap to one person isn't a big leap to another person. And maybe what seems like a small step to one person is a huge step for another. And so we start to recognize that and we start to condition the mind to be okay with change. Easiest way, do something a little different in your routine. Get out of bed on the opposite side. Try brushing your teeth with the wrong hand. Say hi to people that you wouldn't normally say hi to. Every single one of these little things, your brain synapses are going, oh, we're still alive. And you're conditioning yourself to have more courage. Was it you who said courage, really? Yeah, right? You have more ability and confidence to take those steps. And so this is how we start to embody it. Yeah.
A few steps forward. This I already know.
Begin there and then do it consistently. That's the trick. It's like you're on a downhill slope. Or even if I love this definition of running. Somebody gave me once. It was in the military, just a second. Where, we're all tired and we're running. I used to be in the military. And we're running and the drill sergeant's like, it's just like falling forward, just keep going. Oh, okay. Right? Once you get that momentum, just make sure you got footing and keep catching yourself, and keep the momentum going. Because the moment we pause, if we hesitate, that's the killer of our dreams. In hesitation. There's a great book by Mel Robbins, The 5-Second Rule, where she talks about, she talks about that our brain is wired to, as soon as you change any routine, and that's after like 5 seconds, your brain's like, wait a second, you hesitated, this must be something new, this is life-threatening, don't do it. And so her invitation through the book is, don't take more than 5 seconds to take an action on a new thought or inspiration. As soon as you have it. Maybe it's that you walk into one of the cafes, or maybe even here in this class, you see somebody, you want to talk to them, and you sit there for like 5 minutes being like, well, what do I say to them? I don't know. And then they walk right by you, and you're like, no, I guess I can. That wasn't possible. Oh, just less than 5 seconds, be like, oh, Hi, what's your name? Just take the action. Now, in that again, it's saying yes to the possibility. It doesn't mean that whatever your fantasy might have been of like, we're going to have children together, I saw this person, they were my soulmate. Like, don't get stuck in the story. Just take a first step, a baby step. And sometimes that's even just getting up, taking a step towards them. These are actions, and as long as you keep momentum in that action, all of a sudden you find yourself already pretty far down the path of what you wanted. Once you've made a choice, and you made that choice, and this is what the kind of choice that she's talking about, this is what it looks like. I'm going to go that way. Right? You're not letting go of the other foot. To let go of the other foot is to realize that once you make a choice, imagine that it's a fork in the road, and you decide you're going to go this way, the other one doesn't exist anymore. There is no place for that other foot to be. There is no going back. There is no regret. That's an illusion of the mind. There's only forward. Now that's scary because you're like, well, that sucks because what if I did want to try the other choice? I'm saying that the choice behind you doesn't exist anymore. But there's always infinite choices ahead of you. When you remember that let's say, for instance, it was, am I going to move to Bali or am I going to go back home? And you're like, which one do I do? And then you decide, I'm going to go back home. And you go back home, it doesn't mean you can never come back to Bali. It just means that you can't, middle of the flight in the plane, be like, I changed my mind, I regret what I chose, let's go back. No, you can't go backwards, but you can get to where you are and make a new choice forward. Make sense? When you realize that there's always a possibility forward, that's what allows you to let go of what's behind you. What do you do when there's so many possibilities and you're aware of all the possibilities? That's like, an evening in Ubud. You're like, there's a kirtan, there's a cacao ceremony, there's another heart talk, there's a healing. Which one do I do? It's called FOMO, fear of missing out. Notice it's fear-based. It's about avoiding. You're avoiding missing something else. It's that same regret of what if the other thing was better? And again, I say the choice that you make is the right choice because you made it. There's another saying I really love. You guys have all heard the saying that the grass is greener on the other side, this illusion of the mind, and we're like, things are better over there. Well, I love the reframe on that the grass is greener where you water it, where you are present to it, where you cultivate. And so, whatever you choose, and here's the other thing you can do. You can change the word choose to prioritize. Right? Prioritize means that you're not choosing between things, but you're choosing which one now. You're making which one more important to you now, which one matches most now, which one makes the most sense now. And you prioritize it. And then you go towards that. And then, at a time when it's the next priority, you can try something else. All of it is predicated on the idea that the infinite possibilities of your life are always the next step ahead of you. That in every single moment you can choose. Now, that said, you want to create clarity in your choice. So don't be like, I tried that a little bit, I tried that a little bit, I tried that a little bit. I don't know if I liked any of them because I wasn't there long enough. No. Go down the path a little bit. Feel what it's like. See who you meet, what you come upon, what you experience, and at some point down that path, there'll be another choice point naturally. That's actually the key is let the choice points be the natural ones that come up, not the ones that you do out of reactivity and aversion because you got uncomfortable. I'm going to say that again. Let your choices come from a natural desire forward, not reaction to what you're avoiding, which is often discomfort. And with every growth, everything that's new, there's a moment of discomfort. You got to go through it all the way to the other side. All right, those little cards that you have there on your mats, you can turn them over now. Take a look. We're going to try something new. This is me checking out a new possibility, putting myself a little bit in the discomfort and unknown. So all of you have a word on your card. I hope, because it's often the case, that whatever word came to you is the right one for you today. Aligns in some way or has some message for you. And I'm going to do my best right now, improv style, to expand on whatever that word is for you. And so what we're going to do See, how do I really want to do this? Yeah, I'm going to combine this. So we have about 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm going to give a summary of everything we've been talking about, but I'm going to use the words that you each have. So what we're going to do, we're going to go across. You're going to shout out your word, and I'm going to bring it in, and then I'll go to the next person. Wait till I point at you. What's your word? On your, not the QR code, you can just flip it over. Surrender. Ooh. All right. So I'm going to do a little spoken word, improv style here, and we're going to do it to also the topic of today, possibility. So we have these moments in life, and we have to just surrender into the possibilities of all that isn't our strife, but is the desires that we wish for as we continue moving into the expressions of life, because there is every infinite expression. Look at the diversity of everything that's here that allows us into the attraction of what it is that we desire. We magnetize that into our possibilities of our own field of, of embodiment. I love that, because that's the physicality, the steps that we take, the action that allows us into the dreams of what has not been made reality, has not manifested, because maybe we had a moment of self-worth that said, I'm not enough. We started to look into that, and we started to think that not enoughness, what is your card? That not enoughness was the wholeness, when actually excellence, brilliance, who you really are, not in fragmentation but in totality, is what allows for the playfulness of life. Because sometimes we get really serious, don't we? We get so serious in the ways that we are that we don't know what to do, because we get limited in the amygdala of this survival mechanism and defense. And in the authenticity of who you are, when you admit that where you are may not be the ideal just yet, there's still more to come. All you have to do is open up, turn towards that which you really want. And there's a choice in that. That choice is you at the fork in the road, deciding, but not staying in limbo, but actually saying, you know what, if I take a step, no matter which one it is, it's the right one. Because in taking that step, I'm communicating to myself what's possible. I'm letting my brain, my mind know that there is more here than I ever could have imagined in the fantasies that I was distracting myself into. But it takes humility. You have to sit sometimes with the sorrow of what's inside, the places of shadow that you haven't wanted to be in with residing. But you know what? When you really go in, when you feel the sensuality of your body physiology, there is something there that allows you to start to receive the possibilities in life, the things that are truly there for you in the freedom of everything. Because we're only limited into a cage of our own sense of lack of possibility, to be honest, but reality is different. Reality allows you instead to have purpose, not because it was some mandate before you were born and brought into this reality, but it was a purpose you chose, that you said, yes, I'm going to move in that direction, and I'm going to do it with integrity. That's an alignment. That in every step I choose, I'm feeling it. Yes, that feels right. When we are aligned, we are in integrity. And that is actually the beauty of empowerment, because we have the courage to take that step forward. And in that courage, one of my favorite things ever is we have curiosity. When we get curious about life, then all those moments that we were so focused on strife, that we were so in our own amygdala trying to just survive, we look around us and we realize that the possibilities, the things, the desires, the things that we want that we didn't even think we knew, were right there at the doorstep waiting for you to just choose. Thank you, everybody. That was fun. Woo.